Now, popping in via video Skype for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers and audio for radio listeners is Dr. Russell Blaylock. He is a retired board-certified neurosurgeon author. He's a former clinical assistant professor of neurology at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. He is the author of numerous books and numerous scientific articles, including Excitotoxins in '94, that's now gone to the mainline literature, on NutraSweet and a lot more, 2002 on natural strategies for cancer patients, 2003, and writes a monthly newsletter, the Blaylock Wellness Report. Blaylock has done an amazing job over the years exposing the H1N1 shot, all of it. And he joins us here today to get into California saying we're going to shoot your kids up with Gardasil without even telling the parents. That's now law. But you can't really legalize tyranny. You can't have a law saying black people are slaves. I don't care if you have a law. The law is bull. But also, we had an article on Infowars.com that he wants to correct. It's fluoride linked to #1 cause of death in new research. And in his analysis, he says, yes, in his email to us, yes, it is connected to the plaques, but not in the way you're saying. So he's going to flesh that out, and we'll have an update added to one of our great authors' research on that front as well. But I've had a lot of scientists on who talk about it, related to the calcification, also in the joints, not just the arteries. But I'm not a medical doctor or a brain surgeon, so we'll get that from Dr. Blaylock here in a moment. Dr. Blaylock, we've seen record numbers not taking the shots. It came out that the H1N1 did cause Guillain-Barré, something you predicted. It did come out that they knew this. It did come out that in the Canadian government studies, as you know, and university studies, that it reduced your normal autoimmune response to regular flu by half. I mean, there's really an awakening happening right now. So they're coming down with both feet on us. They've got CDC programs, as you know, calling people's homes, sending letters, local funded health departments by the feds are going door to door now saying, we're here to give your child a shot. Just total color of law, hoaxing. Is this desperation, or what's behind it, and what's the basics on these vaccines, sir?
Well, it is desperation, and the problem they have now is a lot of good, hard science is coming out showing that these vaccines are not safe, particularly due to the adjuvant aluminum compounds. There's a group out of Vancouver. I'm friends with these researchers, and they've written several articles that are very powerful showing that this is not safe. There's also immunologists that work with autoimmune diseases that are showing that a number of autoimmune diseases are being related to these vaccines. Narcolepsy was occurring in these small children. In Australia, they blocked the vaccine because of the onset of this narcolepsy in these small children. In Norway, this is devastating neurological damage, and we have a very good mechanism to explain this. I've written several articles in peer-reviewed journals in which I explain how this mechanism works and why the vaccines is doing this. Well, they can no longer completely ignore this because it's in the prestigious journals now. And that terrifies them. I've never seen such promotion of vaccines as occurred after this H1N1. You would have thought, after all the material that I gave you showing that even the CDC knew it, and the World Health Organization knew it, that they were caught in their lies, and the damage that was done to millions of people worldwide, you think they would have backed off this push for vaccines. But no, they doubled their effort. Which is terrifying because it's destroying the lives of tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, of children and adults worldwide. So it's a severe act of desperation. They're going to churches, they're going to pharmacies. Everywhere I go into pharmacies, just signs everywhere. Now, this year we had, I looked on the CDC site, 0 deaths, no deaths from flu. Yet they were pushing it as if the streets were littered with dead bodies from the flu.
And yet, sir, I see articles even in mainstream news every day about this company fined for 15 babies dying in illegal vaccine test. This nurse died 1 hour after a flu shot. I mean, I talk to people. I have a guy who works here whose wife's an RN. She knows a nurse in a wheelchair, a young nurse from it, 3 years later from the shot they made her take, or they threatened to fire her. I mean, this is a scourge. But then I'm seeing some doctors and nurses now going public, thanks to you and others' work, and as you said, peer-reviewed journals coming out and confirming your pioneering research and others. But on the other side, I'm seeing other doctors, including doctors I know personally through family connections and things, who are becoming almost like jihadis, or I guess the term could be they're on some type of crusade, wild-eyed, saying arrest people that don't take it. There's never been a problem from vaccines. They're totally perfect. So those that have been out there pushing it forever at the low level, they're not going to admit they were wrong. So it's almost like people who've been involved in abortion will never admit it's wrong, most of them, because they don't want to admit what they've done. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, the people that are coming out with these shrill replies about the safety, when you pin them down, I mean, when they're going to debate me, none of them will debate me or any of the other people who question the safety. You find out they know absolutely nothing about neurological injury. They know absolutely nothing about the immune response in the brain from vaccination. For instance, Dr. Paul Offit, who is their leading cheerleader, he admitted on videotape that he didn't know anything about neurology. And he couldn't imagine what mechanism would connect vaccines to seizures and other neurological injuries. I've written extensively about it. I've had at least 10 articles written demonstrating how systemic immune overstimulation produces brain damage and malformed brains in children.
But, sir, I'm not a brain surgeon neurologist like you are. I just know that I've talked to literally thousands of parents over the years, and I've seen the medical reports. You take the 18-month-old in for the third round of shots. A lot of times they have a convulsion right there in the clinic, or right there in the car, or that night, and Billy never talks again. He wakes up like a 6-month-old baby when the day before he was running around reading his ABCs and catching the football. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist, but if I watch a truck run over somebody and they've got broken legs, I don't think, well, they just broke their legs magically. The truck ran them over.
Well, if this was anything other than vaccines, you would see an immediate banning of this overnight. I remember back when little premature children, babies were being born, and a lot of them were ending up blind, and they didn't know why. Then some intrepid investigator discovered, well, when you use 100% oxygen in these little cribs and these preemies, it destroys the eyes. Well, they didn't deny it and wait and see if they could prove it absolutely. They changed the oxygen percentage, and blindness disappeared.
What was the blindness disappeared again? What was the drug in the 50s that caused the hundreds of thousands of the babies that have the short arms and legs from the? It was a tranquilizer women were taking while pregnant. They told them it was okay.
Yeah, it was thalidomide. And thalidomide was a very safe tranquilizer for adults, but it produces gross, terrible malformations in these small babies. Well, they didn't wait 1 second to ban thalidomide. And then they didn't launch this attack on anyone who made a connection between thalidomide and these malformations. They immediately banned thalidomide, and the malformation stopped. Well, the government, for instance, they know a lot of this, and that's why they refuse, absolutely. And I have a friend who's an epidemiologist who applied for a $1 million grant to compare unvaccinated children in the Amish community with vaccinated children, their whole health parameters. Very good designed study. They refuse to fund it. They've never given any funding for any study that will compare vaccinated and unvaccinated children in terms of their total health, because they know what it's going to show. It's going to show the unvaccinated children are infinitely healthier. And there is good scientific evidence in a mechanism by which this over-vaccination that we're doing now in the world, the United States is worse than any country in the world, can destroy the immune system, making these children more susceptible to infections. They're going to have a higher death rate from minor infections, and they know that, and that fuels the panic for more vaccines. We have college students are told you have to get all the childhood vaccines again. Now, you're thinking, all of us went through college or university, and we didn't have any problem with meningitis and all these other things they're talking about today. I don't remember a single student ever dying. But now suddenly, it's such an emergency, we have to make sure every college student is vaccinated. Well, I have treated college students who were just destroyed. One was a very brilliant young lady, daughter of a friend of mine, who took these vaccines, and she was just devastated neurologically and physically. We did some things and brought her through it. But there's no question it was due to the vaccine. Her father's a physician.
Dr. Blaylock joining us right now. Why, from studying this for decades, what is the strategy of the big pharma? Because obviously as they damage more and more people, the tide is turning against them. Is it short-term profit? I know we've talked about eugenics, population reduction. Are they just trying to set the precedent where they can get away with whatever they want, whenever they want? I mean, what is the method of this madness?
Well, if you look at it, a very close parallel to what we're seeing now was the eugenics movement in the 20s and 30s up to the 50s. They told us the same thing. This is for public health. Unless we get rid of these bad gene pools, we're going to ruin society, and all of us are going to pay. It is an emergency public health issue that we round up these people, forcibly sterilize them against their will, even put them in concentration gulags, which if you read the book by Black about the history of eugenics in the United States, where they forcibly sterilized thousands of young women against their will. And they use the same argument. Well, now we look back on it and we say, oh, this was an atrocity in American history, that we allowed public health officials to put these people in gulags. And in fact, there was a very well-known ophthalmologist who said anyone who wears glasses should be sterilized because we don't want to promote blindness in the United States. Now, this is a matter of record. He even submitted a bill to the New York State Legislature to have it where people with glasses would be forcibly sterilized. Now, this is where this insanity can lead. Well, with that parallel in mind, here we come with a vaccine policy that is just as dangerous or more dangerous, that's destroying brains, destroying immune systems, and we're saying, oh, it's a public health emergency that these people be vaccinated. Now, these cheerleaders that you're talking about, these physicians who just get livid over this and wild-eyed, they're the people who are listening to this propaganda. They are listening to propaganda that says, oh, we're going to return to the days of mass death from measles if we don't mass vaccinate people and forcibly. Well, if you look back before we had a measles vaccine, which I grew up under those days, I didn't have anybody in any of my classes die from measles. All of us got the measles. I don't remember anybody in town who had children that died from the measles.
By the way, I've got 3 children, none of them ever vaccinated, and they've all had the measles, and it was no big deal.
Well, it's not saying that there weren't children who died from the measles. They were immune suppressed or sick from other diseases like leukemia, and they will die. But this whole idea that we've got to massively vaccinate or we're going to return to those days. Well, the days they're talking about are in the 1800s and 1700s. They're not talking about in modern times when there was sanitation and better food. That's what caused the drastic fall in these diseases and the low mortality rate. If you look at the mortality of diseases for which there's no vaccine in the United States, it had the lowest death rate and complication rate anywhere in the world.
Well, doctor, what about this? I mean, I see articles all the time. I saw one in CBS News just a few weeks ago again, every year, where they're giving these polio vaccines all over the world, and it's causing basically, it's like it's weaponized, super deadly polio. And now I've got a report right here. The main cause globally now of polio is the vaccine.
Yeah, they even named it vaccine-mediated polio because the World Health Organization admitted it was being caused by the vaccine. Now, the interesting thing was, in the United States, we recognized that the live polio vaccine was the only cause of polio in the United States after the 1960s. Every case was caused by the vaccine.
Slaves, I don't care if you have a law, the law is bull. But also, we had an article on Infowars.com that he wants to correct. It's fluoride linked to #1 cause of death in new research. And in his analysis, he says, yes, in his email to us, yes, it is connected to the plaques, but not in the way you're saying. So he's going to flesh that out, and we'll have an update added to one of our great authors' research on that front as well. But I've had a lot of scientists on who talk about it, you know, related to the calcification, also in the joints, not just the arteries. But I'm not a full-funded. Health departments by the feds are going door to door now saying, we're here to give your child a shot. Just total color of law, hoaxing. Is this desperation, or what's behind it, and what's the basics on these vaccines, sir?
Well, it is desperation. And the problem they have now is a lot of good, hard science is coming out showing that these vaccines are not safe. Particularly due to the adjuvant aluminum compound.
Books and numerous scientific articles, including excitotoxins in '94, that's now gone to the mainline literature, on NutraSweet and a lot more. 2002 on natural strategies for cancer patients. 2003, and writes a monthly newsletter, the Blaylock Wellness Report. Blaylock has done an amazing job over the years exposing the H1N1 shot, all of it. And he joins us here today to get into California saying we're going to shoot your kids up with Gardasil without even telling the parents. That's now law. But you can't really legalize tyranny. You can't have a law saying black people, medical doctor or a brain surgeon. So we'll get that from Dr. Blaylock here in a moment. Dr. Blaylock, we've seen record numbers not taking the shots. It came out that the H1N1 did cause Guillain-Barré, something you predicted. It did come out that they knew this. It did come out that in the Canadian government studies, as you know, and university studies, that it reduced your normal autoimmune response to regular flu by half. I mean, there's really an awakening happening right now. So they're coming down with both feet on us. They've got CDC programs, as you know, calling people's homes, sending letters, local. Now, popping in via video Skype for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers and audio for radio listeners is Dr. Russell Blaylock. He is a retired board-certified neurosurgeon author. He's a former clinical assistant professor of neurology at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. He is the author of numerous books.